Well, dang, it's 2021, and the new Dragonborn are surprisingly really good. We've got the full stat blocks of the Metallic, Chromatic, and Gem Dragonborn in the upcoming book, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, so let's break them down. Again, most of this video is going to be unscripted, but I've taken a good amount of time looking them over and breaking down what I think is important. I'd rather just get this information to you now and speak candidly rather than editing for a week to kind of make it look pretty. If I have it here, might as well give it, right? I've got a quick key to explain my highlights from best to worst. Brown is muddy or needs revision. Red is broken, something that may be way too strong to be allowed in D&D. Yellow is expected, things par for the course, nothing too new or exciting. Green is excellent, the big hitters, features that separate the race or class in question from the rest of the pack. Blue is build defining, something that creatively or fundamentally changes the way we play D&D to a level I find interesting and unique. And purple is just miscellaneous things that I find fun or entertaining. Again, this is pulled straight from Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. I do not have a copy myself. I'm not one of the chosen few who have a book early, but I certainly can type pretty fast. So I typed this out for you guys so you don't have to look at the blurry screenshots that I did. We're going to be going over today the three races that are provided in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, the Chromatic Dragonborn, the Gem Dragonborn, and down here, the Metallic Dragonborn. For anybody who wants to just look at it and go, let me just scroll real quick. We'll have the Chromatic Dragonborn traits and Gem Dragonborn traits. These are the tables for the ancestry. And then over here is a Metallic Dragonborn, the whole stat block, yada yada. And then here's a Metallic ancestry. If you want to stick around and go over these with me, please do so. Should be fun. Anyway, we're going to start with the Chromatic Dragonborn. These are updated stat blocks of a race that came out in 2014 in the Player's Handbook. We originally had just a Chromatic and a Metallic Dragonborn, but now we have the Gem Dragonborn, kind of the third party of the trio. Let's get into Chromatic Dragonborn first. Dragonborn with Chromatic ancestry claim the raw elemental power of Chromatic dragons. The vibrant colors of black, blue, green, red, and white dragons gleam in those Dragonborn's scaled skin and in the deadly energy of their breath weapons. Theirs is the raw elemental fury of the volcano, of biting arctic winds, and of raging lightning storms, as well as the subtle whisper of swamp and forest, toxic and corrosive. If you're already familiar with Chromatic Dragonborn, you'll notice a lot of very similar traits. We have the creature type humanoid, medium size, walking speed 30, Chromatic ancestry, which dictates what flavor of breath weapon they have, and the draconic resistance. So we don't really need to go over those. This is basically the elemental affinity you're given based on the dragon that you are attached to, if that makes sense. Chromatic Dragonborn, of course, if we look at this chart, are black, blue, green, red, and white. That hasn't changed since the Player's Handbook. But there has been a couple of changes specifically to the breath weapon. Let me get into that real quick. The breath weapon, if you remember from the Player's Handbook, is kind of the signature move of all Dragonborn, but it's been vastly improved, almost unilaterally, since then. First thing that's changed is when you take the attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with an exhalation of magical energy. It used to take your entire action, so even if you had two attacks on your attack action, you'd have to sacrifice both to use your breath weapon. Now you don't have to. You only need to sacrifice one attack action now, and one of your attacks can be replaced with a breath weapon. An interesting point here is that it's an exhalation of magical energy in a 30-foot line. In the original Player's Handbook, and I'll put up the graphic right here, there was a number of different variations of the breath weapon that could use dex saves or con saves or cones or lines depending on the original stat block of the dragon as found in the monster manual. Now they've much more streamlined it. All Chromatic Dragonborn have a 30-foot line breath weapon unilaterally. All Gem Dragonborn, we'll get to it, have a 15-foot cone, and Metallic Dragonborn also have a 15-foot cone. For ease of simplicity, ease of explanation, Chromatics have lines, and Gem and Metallic have cones. What hasn't changed is that every creature must make a dex save or take the damage on a failed save, 1d10 damage of the type associated with your chromatic ancestry. So 1d10 acid, lightning, poison, fire, cold, and it increases by 1d10 when you reach 5th level, 11th level, and 17th level. The original stat block of the Dragonborn had 2d6 as a starting number, which is a little bit higher than 1d10, but only scaled by 1d6, so it became 3d6, 4d6, 5d6. It scaled much more slower, and by 5th level, this new breath weapon entirely outpaces the old one. Let me bring it to a chart. That should help. The Player's Handbook is here, 2014, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, 2021 is over here. Damage per level. At first level, the original Dragonborn does outpace the new one, but at every other level, it's 5th, 11th, and 17th, the new Dragonborn does more damage. It's straight up. So, let's see, what do we have so far? We have Can replace one attack instead of the entire action, does more damage per level, and let's bounce back. What else do we get? A breath weapon a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus per long rest. It used to be once per short rest, which means that only once per fight or encounter. What if you want to use the breath weapon more than once per encounter? Well, you're straight out of luck. You'd have to wait till a short rest. You have to wait for an hour to do so. Now, you can use multiple breath weapons in the same fight. All breath weapons follow these changes between the chromatic, the gem, and the metallic. It's all the same. I've highlighted it the same way in all three, just for ease of explanation. Anyway, we're going to bounce over to Draconic Resistance, obviously resistant to a certain damage type, which is natural, and the Chromatic Ancestry also affects the breath weapon, and we're going to talk about Chromatic Warding. So, starting at 5th level, every one of these Dragonborn get a special ability unique to themselves, and Chromatic Dragonborn, for them it's Chromatic Warding. Starting at 5th level, as an action, you can channel your draconic energy to protect yourself. For 1 minute, you become immune to the damage type associated with your chromatic ancestry. Once you use this trait, you can't do so again until you finish a long rest. Immunity. That's something crazy. I believe the only other race to have that to a specific damage type is the Yuan-ti, who has immunity to poison. People can fact check me if that is false, but this is something very special. For a minute you can become immune. You can basically become invincible to certain encounters, barring of course bludgeoning, piercing, and slashing. Really good against like elementals, of course, fire and cold and poison. To see which one is the most effective, I've made another chart. So let's bounce over here. If you go to the chromatic stats table, these are the 5 types, and these are all the monsters from the currently published official D&D bestiary. So every adventure book, every guidebook, every monster manual, it is here. So what's immediately obvious is that poison is suffering. There's 51 monsters resistant to poison, 421 immune, to a total of 472 monsters immune to poison. If your DM is one of them never homebrew monsters kind of sticklers, you might have some bad luck with the green dragonborn in particular. The acid dragonborn, a black dragonborn, has the least resistances, least monsters resistant to it, and will have the best luck when using their breath weapon. But what if we want to talk about chromatic warding that makes you immune to a certain damage type? Then we look in this column. Monsters. These are the number of monsters that deal a certain damage type. So you'll see here 153 different D&D monsters deal poison damage, which is fantastic if you want to keep that chromatic warding immunity. It's a great choice in most, I would imagine, most modules or adventures to go green dragonborn if you care about defense. But if you care about offense, probably not the best choice. You can see the runner-ups here. Let's bounce back over here. I believe that's everything for the chromatic dragonborn. So you can see here the original skeleton of the dragonborn is very obvious. All of these are straight from the PHB, and anything in blue and green are changed or entirely new. It's really exciting that this breath weapon is actually now a usable ability past level 5. But let's continue. We're going to go on to the Gem Dragonborn, the new kid on the block, the third of the trio, rounding out the pop to the snap and crackle, if I... That is a terrible analogy. Gem Dragonborn partake of the heritage of Gem Dragons, who claim to be heirs of Sardior, the Ruby Dragon. Sardior is, of course, the Prince of Dragons, only subservient or below Bahamut and Tiamat himself, and I believe the lore is that when he was shattered with the First World, his remnants were spread across the cosmos, and of course to the material plane, to all future Gem Dragons. The colors and mysterious powers of Gem Dragons, amethyst, crystal, emerald, sapphire, and topaz, gleam in these dragonborn scaled skin and course through their veins. Theirs are the wonders of the mind, the force of will, the brilliant light of insight, and the resounding echo of discovery, but also the desiccation of despair. So when we look at the Gem Dragonborn stat block, it's very much the same thing. Same breath weapon, except this one's a 15-foot cone. Same creature types, size, speed, gem ancestry, same thing as chromatic ancestry, of course referring to a different chart, and the same draconic resistance. If you want to look at the chart, it's very different from the others. Amethyst is force damage, crystal is radiant, emerald is psychic, sapphire is thunder, and topaz is necrotic. How does that stack up to the chromatic ancestry, resistances, and breath weapons? Let's find out. Here we have the number of monsters resistant, immune, and total, and of course the monsters that deal this type of damage. So you're going to see kind of two sides of this spectrum. Force, there is almost no monsters that are resistant or immune to Force. It's a fantastic damage type. And only a couple of monsters that deal this type of damage, so it is a wonderful choice if you care about your breath weapon. But of course, if you care about your draconic resistance more, Necrotic is a wonderful choice for more undead campaigns, because there's 137 D&D bestiary monsters that deal this type of damage. You'll get the most use out of that resistance. But if you're trying to deal damage, probably not your first choice. So we're going to talk about the things that are unique to the gemstone, or the Gem Dragonborn. The first is Psionic Mind. You can send telepathic messages to any creature you can see within 30 feet of you. You don't need to share a language with the creature for it to understand these messages, but it must be able to understand at least one language to comprehend them. Okay, so we've had a lot of telepathic speakers lately in D&D releases. I guess Wizards of the Coast just kind of realized it's not really busted, but very flavorful. We've had it in the Soul Knife Rogue, I believe the Psionic Mind Sorcerer, what is that called? Psionic Sorcerer, something like that. And also the recent Thrycreen that came out in the Multiverse UI. So 30 feet is not an incredible range, but it's not limited by time and it's not limited by a number of people. So you can communicate with as many people within 30 feet as you want, which is pretty great. Not much else to say about that, but Gem Flight is a real gem here. Okay, that was bad. Starting at 5th level, you can use a bonus action to manifest spectral wings on your body. These wings last for a minute, and for the duration, you gain a flying speed equal to your walking speed and can hover. Once you use this, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. Again, we're following the same trend of this. You get this at 5th level, so a certain tier of adventure, you'll be able to tap into this. Now, we've seen this before, as this seems very similar to the Protector Aasimar magical wings that they can use as an action, but these can be summoned with a bonus action, making it very light on action economy. You can take your full proper turn and pop these somewhere in the middle of it. They last for a minute, as we've also seen with the Aasimar, and for the duration you gain a flying speed, which is equal to your walking speed, so it's not necessarily capped at 30 feet, it depends on how fast you move, and you can hover, which makes you immune to being knocked prone immune to being knocked to the ground when you're hit prone while flying. You can only use it once per long rest, but in terms of Dragonborn abilities, this is pretty great. In terms of racial abilities, this is pretty great. A lot of people have innate fly speed, but for now, you can tap into that dragon power just a little bit of time. I think this is a great stat block. I don't think there's anything too wild here, too out of the ordinary. It's not immunity, but fly speed is always welcome. So let's wrap this up with the Metallic Dragonborn, last but not least. Dragonborn with metallic ancestry lay claim to the tenacity of metallic dragons. Brass, bronze, copper, gold, and silver whose hues glint in their scales. Theirs is the fire of the hearth and forge, the cold of a high mountain air, the spark of inspiration, the scouring touch of acid that purifies. Of course, that's Bahamut's influence. Again, humanoid, medium, 30 feet, metallic ancestry that gives you the same breath weapon, the same draconic resistance. They're all 15-foot cones, worth mentioning. This is their special ability, Metallic Breath Weapon. At 5th level, again, you gain a second breath weapon. When you take an attack action on your turn, you can replace one of your attacks with an exhalation of magical energy. That's over here. With an exhalation in a 15-foot cone, the save DC is con plus PB plus 8. Whenever you use this, choose 1. So there's 2 abilities here. Enervating Breath. Each creature in a cone must succeed on a con save or be incapacitated until the start of your next turn. And Repulsion Breath. Each creature must succeed on a strength save or be pushed 20 feet and be knocked prone. This is a once per long rest ability. So this is on a separate charge system from the breath weapon. So say your proficiency bonus is 3, you can use your breath weapon 3 times, and then use this 1 time. The charges for this are entirely separate from the other breath weapon. And looking over these abilities, they are awesome. Enervating Breath, each creature in a cone, con save, incapacitation. That is, a creature cannot use actions or reactions on their turn. So they technically still have movement. Movement is not limited to your action or reaction. So after you hit them with Enervating Breath, they can run away or close the distance, whatever they want to do, but they can't attack, almost definitely. Pretty great, and AoE Incapacitate is pretty new to D&D. And let's see here, Repulsion Breath, each creature strength save 20 feet away and knocked prone. 20 feet is a really big difference. I'm getting some Skyrim Dragonborn vibes from this, the Fusro Da power. 20 feet away is higher than most knockaways. I would look at Thunderwave as a premium example of an AoE push. That's 10 feet, but this is 20 feet. There's also Repelling Blast, Eldritch Blast, that's 10 feet. This is much higher, double it. And also knocked prone, so push and prone is fantastic. And AoE prone is a great ability to have, especially as a substitution for a single attack action. Knock somebody on the ground and then attack at melee range at advantage, great combo, already built in. we can look at the metallic ancestries and their immunities. Of course, as is tradition, there are 2 fire types. But looking at the chart, of course, fire and cold have the most monsters resistant and immune. But not many monsters actually use cold, which would probably make fire the better choice statistically. But of course, it is up to you. Acid has the least immunities and also has the least monsters. Second to most monsters. Let me take that back. So decide on what you want. These are the stats of each one of them. Now, don't let this, of course, dictate what you're going to choose. Let it be a thematic and flavorful thing and relevant to the campaign. Anyway, these are the 3 Dragonborn. I can scroll through real quick again. Ooh, if you want to take a screenshot, you're more than welcome to. This is a little bit clearer than the book screenshots. But before we end, I do want to go over what has changed since the Unearthed Arcana. We really care about Unearthed Arcana on this channel, so I have also prepared a PDF for that. Let me bounce on over to this. Scroll up real quick. On the left side is the new one, Fizban's Treasury of Dragons, and the one on the right is the Unearthed Arcana, the original version that we got earlier this year. That was kind of the playtest material. What's changed from each one? Well, honestly, not much. A quick key is that anything in green is entirely new text, anything in yellow is pretty much non-consequential flavor text changes, and anything in red has been removed. The biggest change in Chromatic Dragonborn is firstly, that you can only use your breath weapon on your turn. Previously, there was no such restriction. You could use it as an op attack, technically. Well, actually, since it's an attack action, maybe it can only happen on your turn. It just needed to be clarified. Anyway, the biggest change, of course, is the damage. It used to be 2d8 to 3d8, 4d8, 5d8. This is more damage than what we currently have, 1d10 to 4d10. Obviously, it evens out towards the end, 5d8 versus 4d10. But it would deal more damage per turn on average all the way up. They decided that we should probably nerf that, so they nerfed it to 1d10. Let's see here, the biggest change otherwise is Chromatic Warding. Used to be available at 3rd level, just like the Protector ASMR, but now it is 5th level. Figured it should bump it up a tier before you give them immunity. And the biggest nerf, it used to last for 10 minutes, but now it is only 1 minute. I feel like that's appropriate. This 3rd level to 5th level change will be consistent from the Chromatic Dragonborn also to the Gem Dragonborn, had the same similar changes. Again, the only major change in the Gem Dragonborn was that it used to be 3rd level. For Gem Flight, now it is 5th level. If we keep scrolling down, for Metallic Dragonborn, the biggest change here, again, is 5th level to 3rd level to 5th level. And on your turn, you can only use a Metallic Breath Weapon on your turn rather than supposedly any other turn. It's not stated here. An important note and an interesting note is that we got the Metallic Dragonborn earlier this month in the D&D Celebration 2021, or earlier last month maybe. How long has it been? Yeah, probably last month. In that document, it said that we would still get the Metallic Breath Weapon at 3rd level. I'll put up the graphic right now. And I guess that was just a typo, because that is pulled straight from the Metallic Breath Weapon of the UA, but it is currently 5th level in the book, so don't be mistaken if you're already reading that orange preview PDF. It is currently 5th level in the book and throughout all of the Dragonborn. And I believe that's it. I'm hoping to go over everything else in Fizban's Treasury of Dragons. I've taken a lot of really blurry screenshots, and I hope to do my best delivering it to all of you. Again, I'm sorry this isn't the typical curated, scripted video where I meticulously edit everything. I feel like for something like this, it's easier to burn through and give opinions faster and in a more detailed sense. So thank you for listening. Again, these are longer videos because I'm not scripting myself, so I'm not limiting myself to a certain amount of text. Thanks for listening. I hope that we're going to cover the spells, the feats, and of course the classes after this. So stay tuned and stay frosty.